Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Nerds with Friends. Holy shit, we're back.
We're gonna keep
Yeah.
it consistent this time.
Yeah. Normally we do like a New Year's resolutions type episode anyway. So definitely the resolution this year is to come out with some regularity. You know, when you're in your late 30s, it's early, and soon to be early 40s. uh, you know, Life gets in the way sometimes, and so we apologize for having a kind of a long break, but we're back now, and we're excited to talk about nerdy stuff. I feel like it's going to be a great year. Well, maybe not for America.
Well, who knows,
Perhaps
man?
perhaps a great year for nerdy people like ourselves. So, um,
Maybe aliens will come and save us now. Who knows? All those
why
drones
would
and
they?
all those drones in Jersey. Maybe that's what they're doing. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's hope for the best. But yeah, it's been a while, so let's do some nerdy confessions where we confess some of the nerdy stuff we've been up to. And before we do that, if you guys like and subscribe, that helps us out. We kind of put the old Patreon on pause because we weren't doing much. But let's start small. Just click the little like button, click the little subscribe button. That helps us out here on the YouTubes. And if you're listening on audio stuff, do whatever the audio thing tells you to do. So we'd appreciate it. Christian, what's your nerdy confession? What have you been up to?
So, New Year's resolution and slash nerdy confession is I finally started painting some minis. Cody finally
Hell
got me
yeah.
in it. It started small with painting one at Comic-Con,
They are
which
miniatures, so
that's right.
it ends small too. I hate to break it to you.
Got him. Um, and so Cody got me a set for Christmas, and I think that's actually what was preventing me from doing it was not having supplies. But now that I have it, and I got a bunch of Stormlight Archive minis to paint, and it's been a lot of fun. I thought I was going to hate it because anytime, so my background's in illustration, and when I draw or paint, it's usually big. And the fact of doing something that tiny was like stressing me out. But when we did at Comic-Con, like even the little hints that Cody was giving, like, rest your hand on your other hand, and that'll keep it steady, and I think it's just like really focusing on something that small just kind of tunes everything else out. I'm so focused on what I'm doing that I'm not going over in my mind the stress and anxiety of the day of things we need to get done. I'm just so focused on what I was doing. So I want to start doing more minis, and actually I want to start doing more painting stuff. So I bought some water soluble oils to use because in the tiny condo that we're in, I don't want to use terpenoid in here and having two crazy ass naked cats running around, like having them knock over some terpenoid wouldn't be the best. So I'm probably gonna try to do
I got
some
some oil
painting.
paints right here.
Yeah,
We're using them today.
I'm gonna try to start a painting today with those water soluble oils, and I'm like excited to just start doing it. It's gonna be probably like 20 years since I worked with oils, so it's just mostly been like watercolor and like acrylics and gouache because it's easy to clean up, with water. So I'm excited. So I'm gonna try to do this year. I'm gonna try to do more artistic stuff. So maybe I'll put some stuff up. I'm not gonna put up any of the minis yet because I'm not proud of the work that I'm doing just yet. Sabrina, my wife, she's done like way better shit with some minis, so maybe I'll put some of her stuff up if she allows me to. Um, but yeah, eventually this year, hopefully, I'll put some stuff up.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad you finally started dipping your toes into it. I think with mini painting, um, that is a big hurdle for a lot of folks getting into it because I feel like if everyone tried it and had all the supplies needed to do it, I feel like it would explode because there'd be like a lot of, there is a low barrier for entry when it comes to like being artistic. Like everyone thinks, oh, you have to be an artistic person to really get into it. And I don't I don't think that's necessarily the case. and it is kind of a relaxing hobby where, you know, you can kind of just chill and, while you're focusing on trying to paint like a tiny eyeball or something like that, it's hard to focus on like, oh shit, rent's due, or, I got these bills to pay or this project I work on. So, but yeah, like not everyone has a bunch of acrylic paints, so I think places that, if you guys are interested in trying out mini painting, look at your local hobby stores, game stores and whatnot. A lot of times they'll have a mini painting night where they'll have the supplies ready, and anyone who paints minis is excited to talk about it with someone else new, so they'll help you out and really teach you how to do things. But yeah, I think I haven't really found a good paint set yet where it's like this is the absolute best like starter set for someone. So I think having, a friend who's into it, like I basically for Christmas, I just picked out colors that I'm like this, he needs this, he needs this, he needs this, and then okay, you need a white and black, you need your primary colors, but you also need like a good brown for like leather shit, and you need like a couple good metallics for swords and armor and stuff like that. So I think having someone kind of help you navigate the waters is really get makes it easier to get into it for
No,
sure.
and it's a good set and everything there. Like whatever I don't have, I have the colors to mix it. So
Yeah,
and I get a lot of fun in mixing colors anyway. So it's cool. It's also nice to not have to mix, particularly if you're working with water-based stuff because it dries so quickly.
sure.
But I've gotten some good videos on like how to keep the paints from drying on the palette. So I
Yeah.
saw one. It was like wet paper towel on like any kind of container,
Didn't
and then
I didn't I buy you a wet palette?
oh, dude, I didn't even use it because some of that stuff is confusing to me. But so like I got a paper towel, and then oh my God, it's like some cooking
Parchment paper.
yeah, and dude, it works so well. It's like I had everything right
Well, if
there.
you open up that wet palette, that's basically what it is. Yeah, the main difference with like an actual wet palette made for painting and stuff is the sponge is generally it holds water a little bit better than a paper towel does,
Yeah.
It doesn't disintegrate and stuff like that. But yeah, it's basically the same thing. That's what I use as a wet palette. And you talking about mixing colors and that kind of stuff. I think like that can seem daunting to a lot of folks, and you don't think that you have to do that. A lot of paint brands out there, including kind of I've this last year I kind of migrated paint brands from what I started off with, and I've been really enjoying the Army Painters paints and what they do, which is kind of cool. Let's see if I can grab a couple here. Is they make these things called they're called like flexible triads. And so they'll come up with three paints. Let's see if I can get the old green screen to stop looking at. So there's three different reds, and then if we look at one of these bottles, it'll actually tell you like all the cool like information that you need. So this one shows you that these are cool reds. It's kind of hard to focus, but this is like the third in the progression. So you can just, if you're like, I don't know like how to make this red into the red that I want, you can totally just buy. Normally it's a range of six, and it'll have like the darkest color up to the brightest color of that whatever category it is. So those are cool reds, there's greenish blues, there's ruddy brown, skin tones, all that kind of stuff. So there are companies out there who will make it a little easier for you so you don't have to mix. But, learning to mix paints is also kind of a part of the fun of it too. So, but yeah, I think the barrier for entry for miniature painting has never been lower, which is nice. Because I think Warhammer in the past couple of years has grown in popularity significantly. And then a lot of paint brands have completely changed their paint lineup to make it more accessible and easy for new painters to get in. So it's really really fun
Yeah,
time.
I don't have any interest in playing Warhammer, but
Yeah,
I do have a shit ton of interest in painting minis. So
yeah, definitely. And I'm just the same way. Like I got into it. I got into it originally to paint Dungeons and Dragons minis, and then Warhammer is like you kind of make your way towards there eventually because whether or not you play the game, the universe, The designs of the characters and the designs of the miniatures are top notch. Love it, love or hate Games Workshop, their miniatures are killer. So, I think it's okay if you don't play the game. I haven't played full Warhammer. I played some of the little skirmish games and stuff, but yeah, I haven't played the full on battle, army on army game. So
I think when Henry Cavill finally puts out the Amazon show, it'll probably blow up. I'm sure
yeah,
it'll
I
go.
think I think a lot of folks are gonna watch. First of all, Space Marine 2 came out last year, which was a big old hit. Everyone loved that game. And then the new Secret Level show, which is the animated show on Amazon Prime, that each episode is a different video game. They had a Space Marine Warhammer 40,000 episode. And I think just the amount of quality media that's coming out is going to eventually make Warhammer itself become super, super popular. So I'm excited. All right. Well, my narrative confession, I'll do a miniature adjacent one as well. I've been painting a lot lately over the past several months. Entered a couple of painting competitions and stuff. Haven't won anything yet in these ones. Um, but it's been really fun getting back into painting heavily. And because I've been painting so much, I also upgraded my 3D printing setup. So I've been 3D printing a lot of stuff lately, which is very cool. And again, I think, talking about beginners getting into stuff like this, the new printers they have now, like it's never been easier to get into 3D printing if that's been something you've been curious about. Because this newest one I got, which is an Anycubic Photon, it's called the M5S, I think it's called. And it's like it was $250 on Black Friday, and like it was basically pull it out of the box, plug it in, and it started printing flawlessly, which is not how it used to be. I got into 3D printing several years ago, and even in 5 years time, it's gotten so much easier, so much more accessible. And I've been playing or printing out a bunch of models for this game called Trench Crusade, which is it was funded on Kickstarter recently. I think it made like $6 million, which is like unheard of for like a miniature game. And all the models are basically 3D printable. And so I printed out a bunch, gave you a couple yesterday.
Yeah, they're actually really cool. I'm excited to paint those. They're a
Yeah,
little smaller than I like, but
yeah.
they're really cool.
Well, that's what's cool. So I got this guy that I really like from. Oh God, I need to figure out a good way of like getting it. Oh yeah, there we go. So this guy here, he's got his little poncho on, his gun. So Trench Crusade is basically set in like World War One era, but the story goes that they like during the Crusades they accidentally like opened a portal to hell or something, and so you know humanity has been fighting against like demons this entire time, and now they're in like World War One era. So yes, there's like World War One like armor and weapons and stuff, but then there's also like demonic forces. There's been some slight technology and stuff, um, you know, that's come about from like different power sources from hell and stuff. Like there's these like this guy right here is a big robot boy with a big old machine gun and stuff. And what's cool is like because it's 3D printable, you can and like for someone like you who's starting out, maybe that 32 millimeter size is too small. You can print them out bigger. So here's two of them right next to each other. So oh fuck, oh the green screen. So you can see one of them is much much bigger than the other, and that makes it a lot easier to paint small details and stuff.
Like
Um,
a lot of the details aren't showing up because the camera's not focusing, but there's a lot of cool details on
yeah,
the little minis.
yeah, we'll post some on the old Instagram so you can take a look at what we're talking about and whatnot, and kind of see different scale makes it. There's other challenges like like doing a bust like this, which this is not complete at all, but yes, it's much bigger, so the teeny tiny little details aren't quite as bad on it. But like when you have like a bunch of skin like this, you have to really add some different tones and shadows and things like that to really make it look realistic. Where on like a little teeny tiny guy, you throw, a bottle of paint that says skin tone on it on them, and it's pretty much done. So yeah, it's really fun. I'm glad you're enjoying mini painting. It's been something I've really enjoyed the past few years, and I think it's only getting easier and more accessible to like get into it nowadays, which is so cool. I can't imagine being back in like the late 80s, early 90s with like no internet, no television shows about it or anything, and just trying to figure out how to paint these things and kind of doing trial and error and figuring it all out. But
All magazines, baby. Probably like some Fangoria magazine type stuff.
yeah, yeah. Games Workshop has this long running one called White Dwarf, and they have painting tutorials and stuff in there. But man, watching someone paint on YouTube is just so much easier. They get 4K cameras and stuff. So, well, Christian, it's been a while since we podcasted. What have you been up to? What kind of nerdy things have you been getting into? Let's give everyone like a little bit of an update.
Wrestling, man. I've gotten back into wrestling, and what got me back into it was I'd watched the show Heels on Netflix, and it was so good. And like when I saw it growing up as a kid, like I always just saw the front of it, the face. So it was kind of cool, like seeing like a tiny company and like what they do and what happens in the background, and like all the lead up to like putting up a show. And it was just so interesting, and it just kind of sucks that like it stopped at season two. So
Yeah.
now
So that show actually, like, it wasn't a Netflix show. I think it was
stars.
on Stars.
Yeah.
And like, unfortunately, not as many people are subscribing to Stars as they once were, kind of thing. So I think it just didn't get the viewership. If it had come out on Netflix, I think it would have lasted a lot longer. Because I thought it was pretty good. It had Stephen Amell in it, who's Arrow from the CW show, and a couple other great folks in there. And I thought they did a really good job with it, and it was pretty cool to see like because everyone knows the WWE. That's kind of the face of professional wrestling. But all around the country, there are these like little independent wrestling companies that really like, they put on local shows and whatnot. And like, they have to do what the WWE does, but with a much, much smaller budget, you
Yeah,
know?
actually, so like the last Monday Night Raw was at the San Jose arena, and I was like, you know what, like, dude, I haven't been to like a live like show since I was a kid. Dude, looked up tickets. Sitting in the front was like $6,000 to $8,000. It was
Yeah.
like $200 for nosebleeds. I was like,
God
that
dang.
is crazy. And I was like, all right, I'll just watch it on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do want to try to find a local like a local league to follow, and I've been trying to research. There's a couple here in the city, one in San Francisco, and I kind of want to see like to start going to those shows just because like in particular in the show Heels, like just watching these guys who do it for the pure love of it, like they're not making
Yeah.
millions of dollars. Like they're not even, if anything, sometimes they're not making any money at all.
Yeah.
Just they do it just for the love of it, just to get like the excitement of stepping into a ring and seeing like either like if you're the face, just all these people just excited for you to come out. If you're the heel, just getting everyone like pissed off and getting everyone hyped up for the face.
Yeah.
Um, and it just seems almost like it's almost like D&D like live, like you just because there's certain things that you can plan out a match, but it's just not going to go the way you planned it, and you got to keep the show going. Like you just got to keep
Right.
keep going, making it happen. So yeah, I definitely want to try to go to like some live shows, man.
Yeah, definitely. I've never been to a live wrestling show. I got into wrestling, when I was very young and, during the Hulk Hogan Macho Man days. And then I got back into it briefly during like the Attitude Era with like, with what's his name, Stone Cold and The Rock and Mankind and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I haven't really paid much attention to it since then. But it's one of those things where like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's so fake and this and that." But it's like, yes, like the characters are not real people. You know what I mean? They're a character and it is an entertainment show, but there's some real like athleticism in there, and there's like a lot of like you were saying, like improv and like surprises that happen that maybe they didn't know they were gonna do and that sort of thing. And it's just, it is an entertainment show. And in with the popularity of like reality TV, I'm surprised that like more people haven't given, professional wrestling a shot because at least those guys are doing something, you know?
You should get back into it, Cody. Like Monday Night Raw, Mondays, they're showing it, and then you can just watch the repeat. Like obviously, I don't make it home in time at 5 to watch it live. So I just
Yeah.
catch the repeats. But I think now's a good time if you want to. Now's a good time. Like The Rock is going to be showing up from time to time because his nephew's been wrestling, which again just found out because I just started watching it. John Cena's back in there, so
Oh,
this
nice.
is yeah, this is his last run, because let's be honest, he's getting older.
Yeah.
Like the body can only take so much. I don't think everyone can be like Ric Flair, who can wrestle up until like well into their 60s.
Right.
It was interesting. Like they brought back for the premiere, they brought back a bunch of people. John Cena showed up, like I said. Hulk Hogan showed up. I think to the surprise of not a lot of people, he was booed.
Yeah.
Um, because he's not a big fan of people with pigmentation. That's kind of well known now. There's
Yeah.
tons of videos of him saying some shit he should not be saying.
Yeah.
He went
100%.
out there promoting his All American beer, and yeah, I don't think people are about it. I
Yeah.
think people are going to be drinking that All American beer, and
Right.
you could tell. And this is like the great thing about wrestling is like he was supposed to come out and be a face. He was supposed to come out and be like the hero,
Yeah.
but people they were not responding to it, and you can see in real time in his face how he was getting crushed, and it was kind of dope just to
Yeah.
see him like,
Just to see
oh
a
my god,
grown man's dreams
yes,
crumble.
he did it to himself
Oh,
though.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. He
Like
is.
it's not like this is like it's not like poor him, like, oh, this is happening
No.
to him.
Yeah. He's not. I think his own reality shows and stuff have proven that he's not actually a good dude.
No,
So,
yeah, and like I've been watching a bunch of videos on YouTube of like wrestlers, when we were growing up, just talking shit about him. It's like, dude, like, damn, this guy was fucking terrible. Like Bret Hart in particular has a ton of videos where he's like shitting on Hogan. Um, so it's kind of interesting, like just watching all the drama that you didn't know was going on.
yeah.
Paul Heyman also came out, and this guy does not age. He looks exactly the same.
Same.
I,
Nice.
I don't know if he's a vampire. I don't know if because he was carrying around Undertaker's urn thing for years, it just kind of like through osmosis made him immortal or something.
Yeah.
This dude has not aged at all. So it's
That's
kind of like, oh
awesome.
man, like nothing's changed. Everything's the
Yeah.
same.
I know. It's just the steroids, Christian. It's keeping them all young.
I don't know, man. Like he's not changed like at all.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Like there's a bunch of new faces. It's kind of interesting getting to know like all the new um athletes, I guess. I shouldn't say characters, but to me they're characters. Um, but yeah, man, I think now is a good time for anyone who wants to get into it.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, maybe I'll have to check that out. I haven't watched wrestling in quite some time. I think kind of an exciting thing for I think both of us that happened while we were, not podcasting. Stormlight Archive 5 came out, and which is Brandon Sanderson's Epic Fantasy, and it's the fifth book and final book of the first half of Stormlight Archive. So it's the complete story arc. And it's I mean it's a fat book. I think it's like 1,300 pages or something like that.
I could go grab it and look, but it's in the
Yeah,
other room. But yeah,
yeah,
it's
mine's back here, but
uh,
it's a fatty. And we when it came out, it was the most excited I've been for like a new release of something in a long, long time. And I burned through it in I think 4 or 5 days, just like nonstop reading it. And God damn, what a book. I think we'll do like a full spoiler. review episode of it, talking about our thoughts and stuff. And maybe we'll get one of the folks from our book club on to talk with us too. But what were your thoughts on it? Was it like satisfying for you?
So my initial thought was, and I don't think I'm going to give anything away, but like in book four, it mentions that like in 10 days, it's basically going to be done.
Yeah,
So I was like, man, how is he going to write? I was like, I knew the book was going to be fat. And I was just like, how is he going to make a big old book that's supposed to span within 10 days? And then going through the book, and it's like when you're like halfway through, it's like, dude, we're on day three. Does he have enough pages to like fit the rest of these days? And like, oh my
yeah,
God, like, and it's not like it was boring. Like it didn't feel like a whole lot of filler or anything. It was just a lot of awesome storytelling. But it just goes to show, like, to me, it just showed, like, dude, if you're a good writer, like the span of 10 days, like you can write an epic like
yeah.
book. Like, and you don't have to do it the way, as much as I love J.R.R. Tolkien, you don't have to describe a tree for like, 5 pages or something. Uh,
Exactly. And I
it's
mean it, and I would say like it's you're right because you're like reading through this thing and you're like, oh my God, how is he gonna pull this off? You know, before you start reading, you're like, man, 10 days doesn't seem like that much for all that kind of needs to happen in this book and whatnot. And then you start reading, you're like, oh fuck, is 1,300 pages enough? You know? But yeah, that's why Brandon Sanderson is as popular as he is that like it never felt slow. It never felt like boring or and I will say like in um other volumes of the Stormlight Archive, the other books, like there's chapters that I'm like, whoa, this one's dragging a little bit. We're learning about like, you know, some of the inner workings of the tower or something like that. And it's like, yeah, those are a little slower. But in this one, it was just like it seemed like every page was like something new, crazy was happening, and I mean, man, what a it's been a while since I've had a reading experience where it was that fun and entertaining start to finish, which is pretty cool.
It was funny
Um,
how you mentioned there were some parts in the story that did feel a stretch. And you'd mentioned the tower, but for me, it was stuff that was going on in the tower when he's explaining the science of
yeah,
certain things. I was like, dude, I'm fine with soft magic. Like,
yeah.
I don't need to learn how it works.
I don't need to know the physics of like Stormlight and how it interacts with gaseous forms of blah blah blah.
Yeah, like, nah, it's fine. It works. Okay, cool. That's all you need to tell me.
Yeah. I think that you bring up soft magic versus like hard magic and I think it's funny because like they both have their merits, right? Like when Gandalf shows up and he's does something amazing, you're like, oh shit, I didn't know he could do that. And it's like that's like soft magic at its best, where it's like it adds to the tension of the story because you're like, oh, how are they going to get out of this? And then he whips something out, and it's like, oh, it's amazing. He shines the light and uses the freaking magic on the Balrog or whatever. Like there is benefits to that. But if you use it too much, then it's like, oh, well, he can just do anything that the story needs him to do. And so there's a fine line. And same thing with hard magic systems like Brandon Sanderson's. Yes, he does get into the science of magic and stuff, which if you do it too much, you can lose people. But if you do it just enough and you kind of flirt with that line, then you can get to the point where, you know, like we'll sit there, like you finish a chapter, you're like, oh, okay, so I know the Stormlight can do this, but what if you did this and this, and then you have like these theories and stuff, and then it's kind of really satisfying to see how if you're right when it turns out, when you get to the end, you're like, oh shit, I didn't even put those two little things together, those two factoids. So yeah, I think they're both good. I enjoy a soft magic system and a hard magic system, as long as the story is good. But man, what an incredible book. What an incredible series. I think everyone should, I know when we talk about Brandon Sanderson a lot, we always recommend Mistborn first.
It's
But
because the story's not that huge and it's pretty easy to follow.
yeah,
it's
for
not a
sure.
whole lot of mythos that you're learning along the
Yeah.
way. So
But like, I'll be honest, like I started Brandon Sanderson with Stormlight Archive with The Way of Kings. And like I was hooked instantly. And I don't think it would be a bad choice because I know some people, yeah, a lot of people get recommended Mistborn, and I even have some friends who like started reading it and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I like this." Um, Most of them are misogynists. No, just but yeah, Stormlight, even though it is a hefty book and a hefty series, like it's worth it. I think it's
So, like with Stormlight, besides the what is it, the prologue? Is that what it's called, or the beside or the
the
yeah?
preface.
Besides that part, once the true story starts, it starts on such a bang, like
Yeah,
it grabs you right away, and even the next chapter with Kaladin, like bam, it grabs you like
yeah,
right away. Like you just start, you want to know what's gonna happen. It always kind of reminds me like of the Dark Tower, like has such a great opening of like um, the man in black fled through the desert and the gunslinger followed. It's like, fuck. It's
yeah.
such a hard opening.
One of the best like first lines of any book I've ever read, I think.
And it's
But
just
I will
like,
say The Way of Kings, like once you get to the prologue where it's like Zeth, son Volano, truthless of Shinovar, wore white the day he was to kill a king. You're like, oh
yeah, it's like,
fuck.
oh shit. Like, all
Yeah,
right, I'm
yeah,
in.
I'm fucking in. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that like really grabs you, and yeah, I will say because I was talking to someone about this the other day who was starting the Stormlight Archive, and that first the preface, I think it is what he titles it. Like no one has any idea what is happening in that, and I
No.
think it's designed that way. But I think a lot of people will read that and be like, "Oh my God, that maybe this isn't for me." But my one piece of advice is just make it through that and into the actual prologue, and like I think anyone will be hooked.
No, and I started there, and like, had you not recommended the book, I probably like, I probably would have thrown it
Yeah,
aside. But I was like, I have no idea what is going on.
yeah,
I have no idea who these people are. I don't
yeah,
know what these words they're saying.
yeah,
And I was like, was I supposed to read something before I read this?
yeah.
Like,
Was there a primer that I was supposed to read?
yeah, like, am I supposed to know who these people are? Um, it's like, what planet is this? Like, what is he
Yeah,
describing? This is so different than like you just the only thing that's painfully I was like, okay, it's not Earth. Like that's
yeah.
it. That's
That
all you
much is that much is for sure. But yeah, I think if you kind of power through that first chapter and get into the actual prologue of it, then it just like it's immediate action. You're seeing things, you're like, "Oh shit, how's he doing that?" And it's just like from then on, it's just fantastic.
that was one of the cool things is like what the character in the beginning is like, I don't know how he's doing this, but the way he describes it, like where it seemed almost kind of like a Matrix scene where like gravity turns for you and
Yeah,
then the perspective of the world is different. I'm like, man, he described that so fucking well. Like I was seeing it in my mind's eye like a movie, like how
yeah.
it was going on. And I
I
was
think
like,
that's one thing he does really well is when he writes action, even though like there are authors out there who like will gloss over action, like Tolkien famously, like the Battle of the Five Armies in The Hobbit, that they took an entire movie for. Like that was like Bilbo was passed out for most of that, So some people gloss over action, but I think Brandon Sanderson really has a very cinematic way of describing things, and I think it comes from him playing video games and loving movies and stuff. But yeah, it's always fun when people are like the sword fighting and stuff. And he doesn't describe it so much where you're like bored by it, talking about different sword forms and this and that, but it's like it's just enough where you're like your imagination can fill in the blanks, and that's what makes it so
but
fun.
it was definitely like one of those like I can't wait to see that on the screen. Like that's
Yeah.
gonna look fucking amazing.
Hopefully someday we'll get it. But it's probably a long ways off, unfortunately. We'll be old men by the time
I don't care as long as I
Stormlight.
get to see it and it's
Yeah,
done right.
exactly. Um, one of the other things that's kind of come out and been about since last time we talked, in the video game space. I've actually kind of discovered that I have kind of a new love for a new style of video games that I never thought I would be into. I've been getting really into like survival crafting base building type games. Um, so like popular ones out there that people probably have seen, like well, Minecraft I think is technically one. I'm still not entirely sure what Minecraft is, but
I don't
from
either, and I'm not really interested in learning.
from what I yeah, me neither. But from what I can tell, it's that seems like a similar thing. But a very popular one nowadays is Valheim, which is kind of a uh, Viking based survival game. And then there's a new one that came out, I think, last year called Return to Moria, which is set in the Lord of the Rings universe and in the Mines of Moria, obviously. And kind of the gist of all of these games is, you're in this big sandbox of a world, open world or whatever, and you have to collect resources or mine resources or whatever, and you use those to craft things, build your base, and then as you find new ingredients and whatnot, you can build more and more advanced things, and you're generally pushing towards some sort of like end goal. Like in the Mines of Moria, the dwarves are basically trying to take back Moria and make it their home again, and you're part of the party who's trying to crack it open and that sort of thing, and you get trapped inside by yourself, and you have to kind of like figure out how to open the doors for the rest of the dwarves, while surviving yourself, and then building, crafting different weapons and stuff to fight orcs and whatnot and that sort of thing. And it's like they're not action heavy games, but you can like it's really fun to like when you get home from work, you've had a rough day, you can just turn it on and there's normally like some chill music and you can just start crafting things like, ooh, I need, I want to build this new, oven or whatever so I can build, cook better recipes. It's like, oh, I need some stone, I need some granite, I need some coal, and then you build it and you're like, oh, what can I build with this? And then you unlock new stuff and it's just like there's a nice sense of like progression and accomplishment, when you like look back, you're like, I remember when I came in here and I had like a little campfire and a bedroll next to it. And now I have this castle that I've built with like a bunch of with like farmlands and stuff. It's really fun. And I've really gotten into it recently.
So it sounds like Warcraft and Civilization without the fighting.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, the Return to Moria does have fighting in it. There are orcs that come in and stuff, and same thing with Valheim. You have like you fight like different like Norse mythology type creatures and stuff. But this other one I've been playing a lot lately called Planet Crafters. There's no enemies at all in it, which is maybe not for everybody, but I really enjoy it because like if I want a combat game, like I'll play a combat game, play God of War or something like that or Call of Duty. But like I like the crafting and the sense of like building upon your base and building upon your skills and stuff. And in Planet Crafters, you're like marooned on a desolate planet and you're supposedly a prisoner, and your sentence is to terraform this planet by yourself, basically. And so you start off, if you go out into the planet's atmosphere, you start running out of oxygen, and you have to like constantly come back to your little capsule that you crash landed on to refill your oxygen, and then you have to like eventually find water that you can filter out and whatnot, and that over time as you add more like oxygen and as you add more um like atmospheric pressure and stuff like that to the world starts changing. So then, it starts raining, plants start growing and things like that. So it's pretty fun to watch the whole game change around it. And then what's really great with these games is you can play them with friends if you want. So you can both if you have two, three people working together, a lot of it goes way faster, and you can like share your base and stuff like that.
And they can like attack each other and start stealing each other's
Yeah,
resources.
I mean, I guess you could, yeah.
Start creating clans and factions. And
Yeah, exactly. Internal politics just eventually fall into like infighting and stuff. All right, Christian. Well, I'm glad we're doing the podcast again. I think it's one of those things where it's easy to go a long time and then not do it, but like, once we're back doing it again, it is fun to kind of, get back together and like talk about what new things we're into and kind of try to share that with some of the people who like watching and listening. So let's make it a point to make sure we do it at least at the very least, we'll do it every 2 weeks. We're gonna try to do every week, but sometimes things pop up and stuff. But this time, 2 weeks from now, there should be another episode out. So thank you guys for listening and subscribing and all that kind of stuff and watching on the YouTubes, of course. And let us know what your nerdier resolutions are down in the comments. We want to hear what you guys are into. What new hobby or, nerdy thing have you recently tried out and really enjoyed? That way we can kind of see if there's another expensive hobby we need to pick up in the comments. All righty. Well, Christian, thanks again for, reminding us that we need to do these episodes. And yeah, man, can't wait to do it again
Fuck
next
yeah.
week. Fuck yeah. To all the nerds out there, remember, you're not alone. You're with friends. This is Nerds with Friends. Thank you and good night.